She's just a 7-year-old girl, but she has to come to the university class to challenge a math problem that is far beyond her ability. But she stood in front of the blackboard and thought for a long time, but she still couldn't start answering. And the math professor on the other side is very proud of the question he gave himself. Because this question is a wrong question, he deliberately gave in order to test the girl's ability. He didn't find the trap he designed when he saw the girl. Although a little disappointed, this is reasonable for a 7-year-old child. Unexpectedly, after the girl left, she said, "This world's top Fuma psychology, the level is just so." It turns out that she has already seen the puzzle of the question, and there is another reason for not answering. After the adult learned the truth, he was shocked, so he took her back quickly. But this time she was no longer hesitating, and she stood directly in front of the blackboard to correct the wrong question, and turned around and looked at the professor. Then she started her performance. The powder brush on the blackboard flutters. The solution process is thorough and detailed, with the last pen falling. This sophisticated design problem was perfectly solved by her. But the professor still has a question. The girl can easily do it, but why did she just leave? And her seemingly simple answer made the professor feel ashamed at the same time. But what is more surprising is that Fiang is a genius. He is a full-faced repairman. The man's name is Frank, and he is Mary's uncle. And the strange thing is that he doesn't care about Mary's amazing talent. He just wants her to grow up like an ordinary child, happy and happy. But how can a genius be so easily hidden? In the first year of primary school, the first question the teacher taught made Mary very dissatisfied. 3 plus 3, really? I beg your pardon. All right, but everyone knows this. However, the teacher saw that she was so arrogant at such a young age, and asked a few more difficult questions. What is 9 plus 8? 17. Yes, it is. What is 15 plus 17? 32. All right then. Well, what is 57 plus 135? 192. The teacher suddenly realized that she had to think about the questions for a while. Mary could answer all the questions easily, so she simply turned the first question into a puzzle. Can you tell me what 57 multiplied by 135? After asking, she returned to the desk with confidence. But she didn't expect that Mary just thought about it for a while, and she got an answer of a quadruple. 2695. I want you to get on your phone and call Frank and tell him to get me out of here. But seeing that the other person's answer was hidden, it seemed that he was deliberately avoiding this topic, so he didn't ask much, just quietly watched them leave. But after going back, Frank didn't blame Mary for her mistake, but instead took her to the beach to play. Then in the pleasant laughter, slowly guide Mary's correct values. Don't let her excellent talent become a reason to offend the elders and isolate her own shackles. Mary's smart mind, plus the pleasant mood at this moment, gradually took away her pride. Suzanne was taught by Frank. As expected, the next day, Mary not only patiently self-criticized, but also brought a little surprise to everyone. That is a single-eyed orange cat she adopted, also the only friend who accompanied her to grow up, to share with everyone the loneliness in her heart. This also means that at this moment she is reconciling with her past self, so she gradually integrated into this small group. But not long after she got into trouble again, they were about to participate in the model competition. A boy walked slowly with the work of the competition, and immediately attracted Mary's attention, because the model in the boy's hand was extremely exquisite, several times better than the medicine wall he made himself. He is simply a genius in the field of handicraft. The boy walked slowly to protect the work, but was suddenly knocked down by the bad boy next to him. The model he worked hard to make also fell in half. Maybe it's because of the starry sky between the geniuses, full of children, but only Mary bravely stood out. You should not be laughing. You did a mean thing to a little kid. What are you going to do about it? Mary happily called her parents without any suspicions, but the school did not make a big deal out of it. They just wanted Mary to transfer to another school, because with her ability, she could go to a genius school for free, but Frank did not do anything. He was very determined to make Mary stay, which made everyone feel very confused. But the little genius was as stubborn as his uncle, although he knew it was wrong to hit people. He did a self-criticism in public, but he never got rid of his original intention. Before they ruined it, Biscayne Zoo was the best art project. The thunderous applause was always on the right side. The boy was recognized by the geniuses, which was also a great satisfaction, and the teacher had a different opinion of this little kid. On the next day's exam, he specially arranged a paper for Mary, which could be interpreted as the topic of the math competition. After Mary finished it easily, she was not as arrogant as before, but it made her more curious. Why is this kid so good? After he opened the web page, he found Mary's relevant information very quickly, and he was shocked. It turned out that Mary's mother used to be a leader in the field of math, but for some reason she committed suicide. Even Frank, the repairman they often met, was once a philosopher. Everyone in their family was a genius, so the teacher took Mary's test paper to find Frank to solve the problem. The truth was finally about to come to light. It turned out that Mary's mother also had an amazing math talent from an early age, but it was because of Mary's grandmother who kept pressuring her to touch the top of the academic field. In order to honor her, she even went crazy, not only forcibly planning her life trajectory, but also intervening in her passionate love. This made her feel unbearable and finally chose to die of depression. Even Mary was just trying to take revenge on her mother, deliberately having an affair with a mixed-race child. And Frank, as a philosopher, could not solve this difficult problem, so he felt very ashamed. Because Mary's biological father did not know where to go, so he chose to shoulder the burden of raising her and resigned from his original job and became a more free repairman. Because he didn't want Mary to be like his mother, he just wanted her to grow up happily, and he was satisfied. Doing so seemed to atone for his mother. The teacher also solved all the mysteries in his heart, but he didn't expect that the next day came an uninvited guest. She was Mary's grandmother, also Frank's mother. As soon as they met, she gave Mary a brand new computer. Because she didn't know where to find out, Mary also had an amazing math talent, so she wanted to reach out her palm to her niece again. And Frank had already seen her intentions and just wanted to drive her out. But the one who really drove her away was his own nose. Because he was extremely allergic to cats, he could only choose to leave first, but he did not give up. Before leaving, he asked to take Mary to play for 2 days. In fact, he just wanted to verify if Mary really had talent. Frank saw that this request was not too much, and he also had the right to do so, so he agreed. But he didn't know how much trouble this would bring him. The next day, his grandmother drove a luxury car to pick up Mary. This was also the first time he had left his uncle in 7 years. Then he came to a bustling street. At this moment, his heart was full of yearning and excitement, and his grandmother's house was not only decorated gorgeous, there was also an expensive piano that he missed. But he accidentally found an old almanac which recorded his grandmother's past. It turned out that he was also a top student at Cambridge University and made a lot of contributions in the field of math. But he worked hard for it all his life, and he couldn't reach the peak of his yearning, so he devoted all his hopes to his daughter, who was more talented than him. But unfortunately, he never realized that his desire had turned his love into a machine, not only forcing his daughter to die, but now he has transferred that unfinished obsession to his granddaughter. The next day, he brought Mary to the Wall of Fame, telling the story of the predecessors. It takes focus and hard work, but if you succeed, your name will live forever. I like Evelyn, she looks like my mom, and she has a piano. But I don't want to live with her, she's bossy, I've heard that. Hey, don't worry, you're not going anywhere. And what Frank said was like giving him a heart attack. The next day, after a heart-to-heart discussion with his grandmother, he was unwilling to make any concessions, but his grandmother was infuriated. You'll have the bucket of beer, he just couldn't find it. But the lawyer gave him a computer, and he couldn't even fight for his daughter's life. He didn't know the name of the genius girl, and was already thinking of all the search engines on the internet. His grandmother was disappointed with this man. The first trial was also a failure, but this trial hurt Mary's heart in no way. She didn't understand why her own father abandoned her. Is it so unimportant for her? Although this was originally an undisputed fact, there was no way to go on like this. But Frank came up with a good idea to try to solve Mary's problem. Then they came to the door of the obstetrics and gynecology department of the hospital and waited patiently for a long time. But Mary couldn't wait any longer because she didn't know what it meant to waste time here, until the nurse came out with a smile. She saw this strange family and that happy atmosphere. This also touched her. That's exactly how it was when you were born. This happy, you came out and told everybody, I did. That's when Mary felt deeply how important and sacred her life was, because there are still people who love her in this world. Then she joined the biological team and felt the happiness with her heart. At the same time, it was completely solved. The knot in her heart that her father abandoned was soon reopened by the court. But this time the grandmother had no countermeasures and started to tell her silly stories. She cultivated her daughter's experience by first praising Mary's mother's excellence and then magnifying her own credit infinitely. But the more she said, the more ridiculous it was. For the highest honor, she even sued her daughter's boyfriend as a kidnapper. It became something she was proud of, but for her daughter's death, it was all because of her own cowardice. You can hear what she said. Even the judge was under that invisible pressure and couldn't breathe, let alone Mary's mother. Therefore, the grandmother was undoubtedly defeated again. But a word from a lawyer inspired Frank's persistence. "You are in way over your head here. You're depriving that girl. You're gambling with her future." So when he went back, he began to reflect seriously, until Mary came to share with him how interesting the new toys of a certain company were. But he couldn't afford it at all, so he made a decision in secret. But the only thing he couldn't compromise was to leave Mary to his grandmother. Instead, he found another family with very good conditions. "I want to stay with you, Frank, you promised me." "Don't leave me, please, Frank, no." "Mary, you know what, Frank, don't leave me." Even if he didn't give up for the bright future of Mary, Frank still chose to leave. But what was unexpected was that not long after he came to visit Mary with a gift, he was abandoned by his foster family because Mary was still angry. At this time, he still felt a little strange, until Mary's teacher saw a single-eyed orange cat who was announced to be dead because no one adopted him. Then he sent it to Frank. He realized that it must be his grandmother who was allergic to cats and was spending money to interfere with Mary's foster family. So he immediately rushed to the pet shelter and rescued Mary's good friend, the single-eyed orange cat. Not only that, he also put other pitiful stray cats and took out a mysterious black box and rushed into the foster family. When he broke in, he saw Mary surrounded by a group of scholars with her grandmother in the middle. The atmosphere was extremely depressing, and at this moment, Frank angrily pulled out a notebook from the black box and threw it at his grandmother. But at this time, Mary couldn't help but run out. Frank was very regretful of what he had done. He broke his promise and failed Mary's trust in him, but after a deep hug, the stupid behavior disappeared. At this moment, the grandmother in the house was about to call the police, but she froze when she saw the notebook. She didn't know until Frank came back. In fact, this notebook is Mary's mother's first draft of the solution. It turned out that she had already overcome the problem of that century and was fully qualified to stand on the so-called peak of glory, but she just didn't want to publish it. "Wait for me, Dad." Until now, maybe the grandmother really felt how much her daughter hated her. When she bravely turned over the notebook full of tears, she finally understood how ridiculous her mistake was. At that moment, all the obsession and regret were gone like a cloud of smoke, but the sin she committed could never be remedied. Then Frank took Mary away. The grandmother didn't stop her. She just stood in front of the window and watched them leave. It was as if she was facing her own miserable life. After going back, Frank no longer deliberately concealed Mary's talent, but sent Mary to a real genius education institution so that she could easily stimulate her potential. But after school every day, Frank had to take Mary to the park to play and release the pressure of the whole day and grow up happily with the child she should have. In fact, every child is a unique treasure in the world. The talents they have accumulated in their lives should never be a hindrance to their happiness. Enjoying the innocent and innocent childhood is the life that children should have. There are thousands of changes in the path of education, and there is no unchangeable rule. But the real education must start with listening, end with understanding, even for those children who are called geniuses. In his heart, he also embraces that romance and innocence that children truly yearn for. It is not the cold and heartless rankings and achievements, but the deep and kind care and the innocent childhood. Only in an environment full of love and freedom can children follow their own rhythm and bloom the most brilliant flowers of life.